Hello and welcome everyone to the first Ideas webinar of the 2023-2024 academic year, preparing a globally competent STEM workforce through study abroad. My name is Rachel Rice and I am the program manager for Ideas here at World Learning. I'm joined by my colleague Izzy Fiore, who's helping keep us organized behind the scenes. So please feel free to direct message us if you have any issues during today's presentation. We'll get started in just a moment, but while folks are still joining us, I wanted to share a few housekeeping items. Closed captioning is turned on, and we do have an ASL interpreter for anyone in need. The session is being recorded, and we will share it afterwards with everyone here today, as well as on the website. We're dropping a link to today's slides in the chat, so feel free to reference those if that's how you prefer to receive information. And we have both a Q&A and a chat feature in today's webinar. If you have questions for a panelist or for the Ideas team, please put it in the Q&A so we can more easily match up those answers to your questions. Please do feel free to use the chat to crowdsource information or share resources with other attendees. We love an active chat. And to get us started, feel free to drop us a note in the chat and let us know where you're calling in from. And now we'll go ahead and get started. As you probably know, the Ideas program is a program of the Department of State, and I am pleased to welcome my colleague from the State Department today to give opening remarks. Heidi Manley is the Chief of USA Study Abroad, part of the U.S. Department of State's Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs, or ECA, serving as the lead for American student mobility within the State Department. Along with overseeing the Ideas program and its work to build institutional capacity for study abroad, Heidi also oversees two of the department's leading programs to support American students, the Benjamin A. Gilman International Scholarship Program and the Critical Language Scholarship Programs, or CLS. Heidi, over to you.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Rachel. Sorry, I was getting lost in reading all the wonderful comments coming in the chat. Thank you all for introducing yourselves. It's great to see the diversity in those who are coming in. So again, a warm welcome and thank you for joining us today. I am delighted to be here today and pleased to see so many here with us as we spotlight efforts to advance study abroad in STEM fields with the help of a panel of U.S. higher education professionals whose vision and dedication to supporting STEM study abroad will inform and inspire. As Rachel mentioned, my name is Heidi Manley, and I am the Chief of USA Study Abroad within the U.S. Department of State's Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs. In this role, as Rachel mentioned, I oversee efforts to increase and diversify Americans taking part in study abroad and widening the destinations where they study through programs such as the Benjamin A. Gilman International Scholarship Program, the Critical Language Scholarship, or CLS program, and of course, our Ideas program, the organizing platform for today's webinar. As we all know, STEM fields are some of the most important and in-demand fields in the world today. They are responsible for developing new technologies that are changing the way we live and work. Employment in STEM-related fields has grown tremendously in the past 3 decades and is projected to continue to grow. As a result, the demand for a specialized STEM workforce has increased the number of students seeking to major in STEM-related fields globally. But to be successful in these fields, STEM students need to have a global perspective. They need to be able to understand and work with people from different cultures and backgrounds. Studying abroad gives STEM students the opportunity to immerse themselves in a new culture and learn about different ways of thinking and doing things. It also allows them to network with other students and professionals from around the world. Study abroad also enhances problem solving and communication skills. However, certain STEM disciplines continue to be some of the most underrepresented fields in study abroad. STEM students often face specific curricular barriers to studying abroad. To prepare these students for a globally competitive field, it is imperative for administrators and higher education leaders to provide flexible, accessible, and creative program options. So why does this all matter to us, to society, and to the world? Certainly, employment opportunities and economic prosperity are important, but preparing the STEM workforce of tomorrow really can be viewed as one of the most important of all modern endeavors. Quite simply put, the global challenges facing humanity today include some of the most urgent and complex in history. Climate change, food security, and public health are just a few of the issues confronting all of humanity, and we place great hope in the promise of science and technology to offer solutions. We need to foster a generation of scientists, engineers, doctors, and technicians to fill the millions of jobs needed to inspire, initiate, and implement solutions to the global challenges we face. This generation will need an international perspective to achieve the greatest level of success. With this success in mind, the State Department recognizes the crucial importance of providing more opportunities designed to boost STEM education. This webinar is part of that effort. In addition, I am pleased to highlight a new STEM enhancement to the Gilman program. In support of the CHIPS and Science Act of 2022, the Gilman program is providing supplemental awards of up to $1,000 each for a Gilman Scholar to conduct STEM-related research abroad as part of their study abroad or international internship program. The application period for the Gilman program is open right now with a deadline of October 5th. I hope you will all help us in spreading the word to your students. Finally, allow me to end on a note of gratitude. Thanks to everyone joining today's webinars from institutions across the United States and beyond. You all are the ones turning goals and aspirations for greater study abroad opportunities for STEM students into reality. Thanks also to World Learning, our amazing and dedicated partners in implementing the IDEAS program, and our wonderful ASL interpreters for being with us today. And a special thanks and deep appreciation to the members of our panel. Thank you, and back over to you, Rachel.
Thank you so much, Heidi. And I hope everyone can hear me. Please ping me in the chat if you're having any trouble with audio. So as I mentioned, I'm the program manager of the IDEAS program here at World Learning. Some of you may have joined us for events before, and for some of you, this may be your first time. Whatever your level of experience or familiarity is with us, we're so glad that you're here today. We are, as we mentioned, a program of the State Department within USA Study Abroad. We have 3 goals for the program. We want to increase the number of all US students studying abroad, but particularly those from underrepresented groups. We'd like to increase the number of US higher education institutions offering study abroad programs, and we want to expand study abroad to new overseas destinations, particularly those that are less common. We offer an annual small grants competition. We offer approximately 30 grants of up to $35,000 each, and approximately 1 consortium grant of up to $50,000. Please keep an eye on our website and on your emails this fall for more news on the grant competition. And we also offer capacity building initiatives like the one you're attending today. They're virtual and in person, and they're open to everyone, and all of the resources are always shared on our website. Just to set the scene a little bit for our conversation today, Izzy, if you'd like to advance the slide, please. I'm so sorry. A quick snapshot of the impact of the IDEAS grant, the IDEAS program over the last few years. We have awarded over 170 grants to 47 states, plus DC and Puerto Rico. And we anticipate that over the next 5 years, about 10,000 students will be impacted by our program. Next slide. To set the scene a little bit today, as Heidi mentioned, some of the majors within STEM are some of the most underrepresented in study abroad. The number of STEM majors going abroad has actually increased over the last 2 decades, and that is a result of all of the incredible work of folks like you who are in the audience today and of our panelists. but there's still a lot more work we can do. And there are still quite a few majors within this broad field of STEM that are traditionally underrepresented, remain underrepresented. And we have a lot of IDEAS grantees who are focusing on STEM majors and STEM students with their programs. And so we're really pleased to share with you today a couple of examples of some of the programs and projects that our grantees are doing. And with that, I will not delay and go ahead and introduce you to our moderator and our panelists. So we have with us today Lauren Griggs from Penn State University. And full disclosure, Penn State is not an IDEAS grantee yet, but perhaps they will be someday. Lauren, would you like to say a word of intro? And then we'll pass it on to the other panelists.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Rachel. It's wonderful to be with everyone this afternoon. I'm very excited and honored to be your moderator for this wonderful webinar. As Rachel mentioned, I'm not sure if it's in the next slide or so, but I am the director of the Clark Scholars Program. And I think there's a bit more information maybe on the next slide about that program. But we are one of 11 institutions through the James Clark Scholars Program that's able to offer much more than a scholarship opportunity for STEM students within engineering. Just a couple of quick highlights. We have about 470 or more scholars throughout the 11 institutions. About 46% of all of our scholars are underrepresented in four-year engineering programs. About 50% of our scholars identify as women, and about 51% of our scholars are federal Pell Grant eligible. And so that kind of summarizes the full program. And then on the next slide, a couple of highlights for our program specifically at Penn State. One of the areas that we're really very proud of developing is our cohort-based global experience, where we have been able to take students, our scholars, to Peru, and really to evolve their understanding of our pillars, our 4 pillars of our program, which are business and entrepreneurship, leadership, social equity, and global citizenship, as well as community engagement. And with that, I will then have our panelists introduce themselves as well. Thank you so much. And Gloria, I think we will start with you.
Okay, hey, hello. Nice to meet you all. My name is Gloria Kim. I am currently an assistant professor in the Department of Engineering Education at the University of Florida. Should I go longer?
That's great. Thank you so much, Gloria. We'll transition to Zach.
Good afternoon. My name is Zach Petrie. I am a professor of English and study abroad coordinator at Heartland Community College in Normal, Illinois.
Wonderful. And last but absolutely not least, Canton.
So good afternoon, everyone. Canton Reynolds. I'm the Director of Undergraduate Programs in the Edward P. Pitts Department of Industrial Systems Engineering here at North Carolina State University in Raleigh, North Carolina. Happy to be here.
Wonderful. Okay, so we're going to do a fun activity to engage everybody. So we'd like you all to take a moment and think about the following statement. If only I had blank, more STEM students at my institution would study abroad. So take maybe a couple seconds to think about your answer, cue them up in the chat, and then I will say go and everyone will enter their responses. So we'll take a couple of seconds. If only I had blank, more STEM students at my institution would study abroad. Okay, let's go ahead and reveal our responses. Okay, we're seeing more funding. Funding is a very common theme. Global internships, curricular flexibility, more faculty champions, STEM faculty. So that lots of common themes here in the chat. And I think in our next slide, we'll also reveal some synergies between what you all are saying here in the chat and maybe what you've responded to the registration prompts. So just to give you a recap of some of the registration questions that we asked upon registration. So the first question that we had for you all was, what demographic of STEM students are you hoping to reach with your programs? And as you can see, the answers or responses really spread over all of our STEM fields here. So we have interest in students who are pursuing pharmacy degrees, biology or biological sciences, engineering, computer science. So really spanning, like I mentioned, all of the STEM disciplines. And we also had a second question that we asked, very similar to the waterfall chat there. So we were really hoping to get you all's insight into what you were hoping to gain out of today's session. And some of the responses were really exciting for us as we developed our webinar this afternoon. And so one was creating how we go about creating programs or creative types of programs, whether that be, programs that have components with internships or research and things like that for STEM students, how our grantees we're able to engage faculty and administration in the buy-in of development of these programs. A really exciting one, and one that I think came up in the chat quite a few times, is how are you able to integrate the curricular aspects for the STEM students? Oftentimes, we know that our STEM students have very specific curricular requirements. And so how are we able to integrate these programs into those requirements? And then last but not least, what are some areas for funding? And this also spanned multiple areas. So funding for students in terms of scholarships and funding for program development as well. So thank you all so much for submitting those questions to us in our preparation for this webinar today. Wonderful. All right, so we will go ahead and jump into a little bit more detail of our grantees' projects. And so we'll start with Gloria.
Hi, everybody. Very nice to be here. Okay, I'm just gonna start off with where University of Florida is. It's in Gainesville, Florida. Sometimes people ask me where that might be, and I usually say, oh, it's 2 hours from my kitchen to the gate of Disney World, and people will immediately understand. Anyway, we are a fairly large institution, 35,000 undergrads, and 70% on financial aid, and we have about 1/3 of our students are of color. Next slide, please. Okay, so I would say study abroad programs could be divided into 2 eras, one before COVID and after COVID. So I named BC, before COVID. My experience before I got the IDEAS grant, and I'm a 2020 grantee, I had a NSF grant, which is to provide students with research experience abroad. I could talk to you more about that when you contact me individually later. And through my connections that I made actually here in the US, I was invited to be the consultant for a 7-university consortium for the development of workforce for the semiconductor industry. So I've got involved with some Korean institutions in 2018, I would say. Next slide, please. So why did I decide to go for an IDEAS grant when I already had a NSF grant that enables students to go abroad? So I was looking closely at who was applying for these programs. And as you can see, and this is compiled over the last 3 years from 2019 to 2021, you could immediately see there is definitely an underrepresented group. And the fact that the host labs in Korea were somewhat requiring at least 1 semester of research experience didn't help us much in increasing the diversity of participants. So in 2019, still we had a lot of students the applicants who came with some research experience, but with 2020 being COVID, there was simply not a lot of opportunities for these students to engage in research. And that's is a level that we will anticipate to see for the next 2 years or so. It's just a trickle-down effect from the the pandemic. So next slide, please. So my colleague, Ping, who's actually here today, she alerted me to this opportunity that will help us in that regard. So I thought, we do get a lot of transfer students from the community college. And I thought, what if we could create a program that will engage those students? Because usually these are students who come into the University of Florida in their third year, junior year. So at that time, they'd be really shy to approach a professor and say, well, I'd like to have some research opportunities. And that's usually where, at least in our case, being our one institution, where most of the opportunities are as far as research abroad is concerned. So I thought maybe we could create a program that will address that issue. So I'm a 2020 grantee, and we had a lot of hurdles. In 2021, for instance, I was able to run the aforementioned IRIS program. So I was able to send some students over, but with a lot of limitations, because at that time, vaccines were only available in the US. So my students, those 6 students, were the only one in Korea, pretty much a very minority in Korea who was really vaccinated and such. So I was take some of the components from that program and translate them over to the ideas. And that will actually launch in this summer, 2024. The partner, POSTECH, it's in an excellent engineering school in Pohang. They're going to host us, and priority for the applicants is going to be the Gator engineering students at Santa Fe. So that's a local community college that's very close to us. It's going to be a 6-credit program. So there's a design thinking. So there's going to be 8 weeks of hands-on program along with science communications to teach the students how to communicate science to the public and to lay people. And then, of course, there's going to be a cultural immersion. What ideas enabled me to do was also open my mind to the online component on possibly how to work with some mismatch between the timing. In Korea, their semester starts in, the spring semester starts in March, and they end in mid-June. And I used to think that's going to be an impediment to creating programs. But through some of the interactions that I had actually with the mentor, that ideas program assigned to me, she's at UNC Chapel Hill, Sarah Hutchinson, and she gave me this idea. It's like, what if we are able to bring in these students while the Korean semester has not started yet, and send our students over while POSTECH is in session. So that way we get to see both worlds, and through the virtual program in the middle, they'll be able to still interact with each other. So we got 3 programs coming up. I'm very excited about this, although my grant period is coming to an end. I will keep reporting about this, and hopefully through the connections we make today, you'll be able to also get some more information from me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Gloria, for sharing your insights on your program. And I just want to reiterate what Rachel put in the chat. If you all have questions specific to Gloria or to any of the panelists or ideas program team, please feel free to put those into the Q&A and continue to connect with one another via the chat. So next we have Zach, who will present to us about his program.
Hello, it's wonderful to be here. Although I am always shy about being labeled an expert, I usually just fumble my way through things and hope that it works out well. This Ideas Grant has been a game changer for us here at Heartland, and was a thing that a consortium I'm involved in kind of sent out as a notice. And I went, oh, this would be great. And got a group of people who are better than I am. And we put together a application and we're selected. And so just this whole process has been amazing. So thank you to Ideas and the people on the call. Hopefully there's something that I can offer that would be helpful. I am from Heartland Community College. We are a small community college in the center of Illinois. You can see we are surrounded by gloriousness of flat cornfields. It's a fantastic place to go if you want to bike. It is just miles and miles of roads. We have around 5,000 students, and you can see some of our demographic characteristics there. As a community college, we have a certain population of students that are much different than my colleague from Florida, and that is one of the difficulties about community college students going abroad. I think last I checked, it was about 10% of students at 4 years study abroad, but it's less than 1% for students at community college. The next slide, please. And as a super small school, I am the study abroad coordinator. That's my fly by night. That's my fun job. I do this not because they pay me, but because I'm passionate about it. My day job is as a professor of English, and that has been both a blessing and a curse. It's a lot of work, but my role as faculty allows me to have these really authentic conversations with my colleagues about workload, about designing programs and making programs that are meaningful for our students that maybe a full-time staff member might not be able to do so well. So that was the first thing I wanted to mention, is like come in from the side when you're talking to faculty. What you can see here is my position is actually an appointment through student engagement. And so that makes me relatively unique here at the college in that I have 2 deans that I report to. So that's fun. But my dean at student engagement firmly believes in study abroad and has been so supportive. I can't say enough good things about her. My colleague that works in the international programs office is a 1-person office. He does all incoming students from international students who are mostly athletes. And I, in study abroad, deal with all outgoing students. We work together, we overlap and support each other, but we're both 1-person offices. What I've done here with the help of my colleague Gavin and all the support from fellow faculty members is created, after I got the position of study abroad coordinator, a committee for global education. And that we determined was our first step. Before we did anything else, before we did any programming at all, we needed to get a group of highly passionate people together. This committee started as an ad hoc committee. We just met in the break room and we're talking about what we could do. What we ended up coming up with was some radical ideas that got the administration's attention, that said, hey, this group of faculty is actually motivated, and they gave us legitimacy and support to grow further. And that's what the Ideas Grant gave us. So what you can see there is my colleague and I, Gavin, we just made this thing up out of our heads. And we are co-chairing this, so it's across academic divisions, and we have 8 other faculty from all over the college that are super motivated about study abroad and global education. What we did as our official unveiling of this committee was a fully employee and funded scholarship for students to study abroad. We canvassed the school. We got everyone to donate $5, $10, $20 every paycheck. And it got enough that we even convinced our president to chip in $500. And so we now give out 3 $500 scholarships, 1 each semester of the year for study abroad. Again, fully employee funded. At the same time we did that, how we sold that was creating a global studies curriculum sequence designation. And so if students take 5 classes from an approved list of global studies classes, they get a mark on their transcript that says global studies. That was our out of the gate, like boom, here's who we are and what we do. And that bought us a lot of goodwill. And with that goodwill, we slowly started expanding to creating a faculty academy. This is a professional development offering offered through our professional development office. And it's a quick 3 in-person meeting, takes about 8 hours, where we talk with faculty about how to internationalize their courses. So we had 3 or 4 faculty every single year who take that with us in the spring. And it's really successful in getting just a little bit of internationalization and global education into random courses like digital media, as well as more obvious globally focused classes like humanities and literature. We then worked first to create a virtual PTA service learning program with a group in Tanzania through Edu Africa. If you're familiar with Edu Africa, they are amazing. Can't recommend them enough. And with all of that, we hit our ceiling. The administration said, hey, we've supported this, we've done this for you, we can't do any more. And at that point, that's when we applied for the Ideas Grant. And with the Ideas Grant, we specifically were able to get 3 programs set up. And if you could do the next slide, please. The first program was these are all short-term faculty-led programs, somewhere in the 10 days to 14 days mark. So as community college students, our students can't always afford to study abroad and afford it in terms of cost of the programming, and they can't afford it in terms of the time to be away and the time to be off of work, the time to be out of class. And so we know that we had to work short term and we wanted it to be faculty led. So the first program we set up was an agriculture program to South Africa. And we picked that because I know the agriculture faculty. And we have a huge building. We got money from private developments from State Farm, Caterpillar, Growmark, if you're familiar with these Central Illinois companies, to build an agricultural building for agri programs. And so we hopped right on that sucker and we said, hey, we're expanding ag. You want to expand global studies in your ag program. So that's a benefit to the students who come here for agriculture. We leveraged the existing EduAfrica provider who did our virtual programming to help us create an in-person program. The second program we did was electronic vehicles to Finland. And so we had a $7.5 million grant we received from the state of Illinois to build a EV program in a building. We have Rivian here in town, who's an electric car company. And so they announced that grant. And the next day I was over in the office of the dean of the CTE, that's what we call that guy, and talked about study abroad and how this could actually be a net benefit for their students. And we leveraged our consortium relationships with Riveria, who's a tech training school in Finland. So they will send students to us to learn about EVs, and we will send our students to them to learn about regular automobiles. So that picture you see there is a site visit our EV faculty got to do to go over there. And then the third one that we are creating at this exact moment is a health science program, Tanzania. Our health science people are amazing and motivated, and you can't be a nurse without caring about students. And so they were very interested in providing unique, positive opportunities for students to learn about internationalization. So I wanted to get them in on this, and we are expanding our relationship with EduAfrica to do that program as well. So that's just a quick historical overview of what we've done, and I hope something in here is helpful to you.
Thank you so much, Zach. I'm sure many questions are brewing in folks' minds about your evolution from an ad hoc committee to a faculty-led program, or several faculty-led programs. So now we're going to transition over to Canton to share about his program as well. Let's just make sure. I'm not sure there's a maybe technical difficulty. Let's see if Dr. Reynolds is able to unmute and share about his program.
Seems like we may have lost Dr. Reynolds. So we'll give him a few minutes to reconnect. I'll chat with him outside of Zoom. But perhaps we can skip his slide.
I'm back.
Welcome back.
I have no idea what happened. I'm literally sitting in the middle of campus, so I have no idea how the internet went out. No, happy to be here. So as I said earlier, Canton Reynolds, I'm the Director of Undergraduate Programs in the Edward P. Fitts Department of Industrial and Systems Engineering here at North Carolina State University. Our College of Engineering, as you can see, has about 11,000 students. About 30 of them are from rural North Carolina counties, and this is a land-grant institution. And so as a result, a large number of our students 57% are STEM majors. And so we have, in the college, we have 8 departments and 18 undergraduate degrees, ranging from everything from nuclear engineering to paper science and engineering. So wide variety of engineering disciplines and opportunities for students to engage in engineering and engineering research. Next slide, please. Our Rwanda Study Abroad program was really the genesis of a trip that was taken by the the director of our now engineering education program, Dr. Laura Bottomley. She at the time was the director of our women in engineering program, which is part of our women in minority engineering program. And so, you know, she came back and said, you know, this is a fantastic place. They're doing some really amazing things. If anyone's familiar with the history of Rwanda, in 1994, they had a genocide against the Tutsi. And so really, the country's still in a process of recovering, but they want to be a middle income country by 2035. And so their commitment to that middle income country status is really about creating opportunities for STEM and STEM professionals to work in country, right? So there's a shortage of STEM professionals. And so the work that we're doing there is beneficial to all stakeholders, right? But it was the genesis of our Women Minority Engineering Program and Dr. Bottomley. And we brought it to the College of Engineering in a way that allowed us to merge a previous idea of ours, which was no one really teaches, especially engineering faculty, how to be a good instructor, right? And the experts in that are folks in the College of Education. But outside of that, you don't really get instruction on how to be a really good faculty member in educating students. And so we had thought about this idea of starting an engineering education program. And if you're familiar with the field, Virginia Tech, Purdue, Michigan are some of the leaders.
I'm afraid Canton's connectivity has spoiled him again. Canton, you're frozen. We'll give you another minute to reconnect. Lauren, we may need to skip over to discussion for a few moments, and when Canton is able to rejoin us, we'll go back.
That sounds great. Thank you, Rachel. So we have a couple of areas of specialty that we want to go over with all of our grantees and just gain their insights into how they were able to navigate these certain areas. We're open to you all's questions as well. So please feel free as our grantees are sharing their thoughts. If something sparks an additional question that you might have, please feel free to add that to the Q&A. But our first question is really related to student engagement. And so we're hoping to gain your insights, Zach and Gloria, and Canton when he is able to join back, into how do you explain the why or the benefit of study abroad particularly to your STEM student populations?
I'll go with a cheating answer, if you don't mind. So our nursing program, they have CAPTE accreditation. And so one of the accreditation requirements is that they do something to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion in the classroom. And so one of the ways that we were able to leverage administrative support for creating the health sciences program was pointing to the CAPTE accreditation requirements. Your people want this, therefore we have a thing that can do that for you. And that was a simple, powerful elevator pitch that got their attention. For students who don't have an accredited program, we have been able to talk about the business connection. So by our our EV students going to another country and seeing a whole different kind of process, that's something that they can put down in their cover letters, that they can talk about in interviews that give them a leg up when they apply for jobs. So those were the two kind of cheat answers. And I hope, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on the job aspect of it. So I do I talk to the UF Career Connection Center to have them also espouse the benefits of studying abroad, because a lot of STEM students are afraid if they don't get that summer internship during their summer here in their junior or sophomore year, they are mortally afraid their study abroad time is going to cut into their prospects of getting a job. So having career services actually tell them, no, actually they value the skills that you're going to acquire through the international, being globally engaged, that actually convinces them. And then I have some alumni now from that 5-year program that I've been running, and they are excellent ambassadors, and they're all gainfully employed. So they could actually tell their own story, and that seems to convince a lot of people who initially thought otherwise.
We have a couple relationships that have the potential to actually allow our students who study abroad to do internships while they are abroad. So exactly what Gloria was talking about. That's a bridge too far for us at the moment, but a more established seasoned program that might be well within their reach. So I think Gloria makes a wonderful point that I had forgotten about.
Yeah, if I can add to that, I think I agree with Gloria. And a lot of students are afraid to study abroad because they think it's going to take away from their opportunity to do internships. And so one of the things we've done on a different study abroad program I'm a part of is we've worked with local companies to create internship opportunities for our students so that they can do both study abroad and internship at the same time. And it extends their time in country. But that model is one that has holistically worked for us. We just need to refine it so that we find internship opportunities that are probably a little bit technically deeper for our advanced students.
Absolutely. All of those suggestions are wonderful and hit at a question, or really a theme of questions that came through the registration, right? Is how to create these innovative kind of creative programs that have internship or research components, or things that the students can elevate in their discussions with employers and things. So now that Canton, you're back, we're going to go back to your slides and see if you can wrap up all of the wonderful insights into your program as well.
Thank you. And I should have just stayed home today instead of coming to work, right? And so, as I was saying, we really want to build a program around the grand challenges, because that's the kind of recurring theme in all of our engineering disciplines here at NC State. And so we took the grand challenges, we took our interest in developing an engineering education program, and the environment in Rwanda, which is interested in developing middle income country status, which portends that they have to have a knowledge-based economy, and then implies that STEM professionals are important to that. And we put those things together and came up with a program that we thought would be attractive to our students. Next slide. The title of our program is Field Experiences in Engineering Education, Rwanda. And so there's a couple of different things that go with that. The first is workshops and coaching, right? So we're having workshops with local teachers. So Rwanda is a very small country. You can traverse the country from one end to the other in about 6 hours, about the same amount of time it takes you to traverse from one end of North Carolina to the other. And so the opportunity to work with teachers in the K through 12 space, right, to provide them opportunities to enhance their STEM education, so that more students would be interested in pursuing engineering careers, was important to us. And so providing workshops based on a model that we have here at NC State called the Engineering Place. Again, we are a land-grant institution, so we're responsible to the constituents, which would be the citizens of the state of North Carolina. So we have a STEM education outreach arm called the Engineering Place, and you can go to theengineeringplace.com, and there will be opportunities there for you to download modules. And if you're in North Carolina, there is an opportunity for us to send kits to you to talk about STEM ed and bring that to your classroom. And so we kind of took that model and we replicated it in Rwanda. And what we wanted to do was create opportunities for faculty and K through 12 educators who may not know a lot about how to incorporate STEM lessons into their curriculum, the opportunity to do so, right? So that was kind of the first thing. The next was thematic education, right? Skill enhancement. And so we're working with faculty members and teachers, and then with our students. And what you see here is a picture of our students from last summer to enhance their skills, right? And so when we talk about engineering education, we're not just talking about the opportunity develop skill as an instructor. We're also talking about how to teach technical content to other people who may not be at your level technically. We're talking about opportunities to engage in alternate career fields like sales engineering or systems engineering. And then we're talking about opportunities to, at some point, hopefully enter the academy or to develop innovative entrepreneurial type opportunities that revolve around education in STEM, right? So the picture you see here is us at Zipline Karanga. And so Zipline is a company out of Austin, Texas, but they use this drone technology and they deployed it in 3 different areas in Rwanda, and it delivers medicine to communities that are not easily serviced by traditional providers, right? And so the drone has a range of about 2 hours, and it can come back to the location, and then they can collect GIS data to understand how effective the impact of their work has been in that area. And then last but not least is research opportunities. As I said earlier, our program is based on the Grand Challenges. And so this is going into year 2 of our Ideas Grant. The first year, when it was a kind of a startup idea that we were funded by the college, we had a student that was working on making solar energy economical. So there's a couple of island communities in Lake Birwa, which is in the middle of Rwanda, that do not have electricity. And so, of course, that means the schools don't have electricity, which does what? Limits the amount of educational content that you can deliver to those groups of students. And so we have a student doing research on how to deliver solar energy in a way that would power their school network. And in this past year, one of the other Grand Challenges in Engineering is to enhance virtual reality. And so we had a student working on an AR/VR setup with headsets that would allow students to understand scope and size and scale of different engineering concepts like molecules, right? So that they could, with the goal being to attract them to more STEM careers. Next slide. Okay. So in terms of grant activities, this has kind of been, and these are my pride and joys. This is kind of the results that we've seen. So I mentioned, so Jenny Mangala, she's a Park Scholar here at North Carolina State University, and that's the top academic scholarship we give to our undergraduate students. And she's the one that's doing research. She's a senior this year. She went as a sophomore. So she's continuing that research on how to develop a solar panel array and then make the technology scalable at other communities that don't have electricity, which, as you can imagine, in Rwanda is a lot of the rural communities. So she's continuing to work on that project through her senior year. Catherine Record is now a graduate student. She was a senior last year in industrial and systems engineering, my department, and she was the one working on the virtual reality and teaching engineering principles to high school students in Rwanda using the virtual reality technology, as I said earlier, on scope and size and scale. And then we have 2 other students, Miriam LaRusi, also, she just graduated as a graduate student in industrial systems engineering. She received a Fulbright for work that she had done on our alternative service break program. I neglected to mention that. This actually started out as an alternative service break program during spring break, where we would take students and do these same activities, but not in as much depth, obviously. And then 2 years ago, we transitioned it to a pilot for study abroad, which is when we applied for the Ideas Grant to help us actually scale it to a full study abroad program and have the opportunity to engage in more research activities like Jenny and Catherine have done. And so Miriam will take off at the end of the month for her Fulbright in Rwanda. She'll be teaching English and math in a girls' school, and she speaks French. Her background is her dad's Algerian, so she speaks French natively, and so she will have an opportunity to work in a girls' school teaching STEM principles and English as well. And then Amy Isvik is a PhD candidate in computer science here at NC State. She also received a Fulbright, but she will be doing engineering education research with the College of Engineering at the University of Rwanda, which is part of a relationship we were able to build as a result of this Ideas Grant. So thank you for the opportunity to kind of come back after the technical difficulties, and I'm happy to take any questions along with the rest of the panel.
Thank you so much, Canton. That was wonderful and really nice to see some impact stories of specific students involved. So we will transition back now to the Q&A portion of the webinar. And so the first question that we had asked was under the theme of student engagement. And so we have an additional question related to student engagement. And we also have a question in the chat that we'll get to in a second. So feel free, if you have any questions that have been ruminating, to put them in the Q&A, and we'll go from there as well. So the next question that we have for you all is, what ways do you find most effective in captivating your STEM students? Specifically, strategies on marketing. What ways have you been successful or find to be successful, or really hope to integrate to engage students in terms of marketing your programs?
So this goes back to what I was saying in the team meeting earlier when we were asked for some anecdotes, right? Like, I go where the students are, right? So for me, when I want to recruit students, especially underrepresented students, I have to go where they're at. So I will go to SHIP, I will go to NSBE, I will go to SWE. I will, hang out. I'm actually in the building where our minority engineering women in minority engineering program lounges. I would go hang out in the lounge, and I'll just talk about those opportunities to study abroad, and trying to educate some of our students on the opportunities they have that maybe they didn't know about. The other thing I do is I lean heavily on the students that I have relationships with. So Jenny is a part scholar. I'm a part faculty scholar. So I had a relationship with her, and I was able to convince her that this would be a good opportunity for her. And then, as I mentioned, 2 of my industrial engineering students in that panel, and then Amy took a class with me, right? So I'm really intentional about bringing my field experiences into the classes that I teach, whether it's the engineering education class or one of the other classes I teach in industrial engineering, or one of the other appointments I have at NC State, so that students realize the breadth of opportunities that are available to them at a 36,000 student land grant institution. And so going to where the students are will get you a lot of bandwidth, because you build trust with the students. And the other piece of that is they have to build trust with their parents for you to send them to Rwanda, right? And I've had those conversations, right? Like, one of the folks on the program, I had to spend an hour with his parents convincing him that he was going to be okay in Rwanda, right? And he had a fantastic trip. But you have to build that communication and trust with students, and you do that by going where they are and not expecting them to come to you.
That is exactly right too. Because I have not run, exactly the IDEAS program, right? But for my other program, students were fully paid to do this, and yet I've seen some students drop out, and then when I ask them why is that, and they'd be like, my parents are very apprehensive of me being away for 8 weeks away from family. So at that point, it becomes a conversation that, I might have to reach out to the parents and sell it to them. And then also the alumni, I actually have my students leave blog posts. I did post the link to my website over there, the program website, that is. So students read those and then realize, oh, my peers, someone who looks like me goes there and is having this fantastic experience. So that's probably the best selling point we can make, what their peers are doing. I can talk all I want about, oh, how fantastic this is going to be, how this is going to open doors, or career service counselor could do that for them. But unless at the last question I usually get is, can you point me to someone who's done this before? So at the end of the day, I'll have to give out that email or contact information.
For us as a community college, we only have students for 2 years. If that's, a lot of students are here to take a couple credits and then transfer to a 4-year. So unfortunately, unlike Canton, I don't have that time with the students to develop a long-lasting relationship myself. And so I have to rely on the faculty that are actually teaching the students directly. And so that's why that Global Ed Committee has been basically my savior, is because I get them excited, they sell it to their students, because the faculty is who sees the students most often. And unfortunately, unlike Gloria's position, our students are here and gone. So I don't have an alumni network I can reach out to. Tracking these students across transfers is insane. And I can't get the students to stay on campus for the semester they get back to then be that resource for the other person. And so that's what's so fun about this, is all of these schools have to leverage what your internal community campus has to offer. And so it's a hard thing to figure that out. You try something and it doesn't work, so you try something else, and then you finally kind of figure out the thing that works at your campus.
all very wonderful points to take into consideration and elevate what works for you at your specific institution. So I have a tangential question that Canton kind of spoke to a bit, but I'm hoping maybe to elaborate a bit more. We're focused on, STEM students in study abroad experiences, which are underrepresented in and of themselves. But if you take it a little bit further into some intersectionality, have you all had experience engaging specifically historically underrepresented or minoritized students that are STEM students in these study abroad experiences, and how have you maybe had similar conversations or different conversations based on those populations specifically?
Well, that's probably better for, I mean, I kind of addressed it from my perspective. Our program is, is routed through and funded by our Women and Minority Engineering program. But even at that, I still have to do some recruiting of those students in a tangible way, because they think study abroad is not for them, or they're going to miss an internship cycle, or they don't see the applicability of engineering education to, computer science, whatever it is that they're studying, right? So you have to connect the dots for students in a meaningful way so that they can see what's in it for them. And part of that is establishing trust and relationships with them. And again, that's going to where they're at, right? And, some of the other things I do is I tell students, so I'm a big sports fan, so I'll tell students, I'm going to be at the football game this weekend, and this is the section I'm sitting in, right? Like, come by and say, hey, and, let's talk during halftime or whatever, right? Building a rapport with students is important, especially when you're taking them to a non-traditional location. And part of that is their comfort with you, and then they're able to sell that comfort to their parents, right? Their parents can hear in their voice how comfortable they are with you, and they know that you're going to take care of them when you go to these non-traditional locations. So I think building a rapport with students is the most important thing you can do to kind of get past some of those barriers. But some of that is being in the spaces that they're at, and specifically for minoritized students, going to the resources and facilities that are available to them, whether it's here at NC State, the African American Cultural Center or the Multicultural Student Affairs office, right? That's where they hang out at. So I go to those places. I build relationships with the staff that works in those areas. And they may hear students talking and say, hey, you need to talk to Dr. Reynolds about X, Y, and Z, right? About this study abroad opportunity. And that's been helpful as well, is building relationships with the folks, the staff who work in the areas where those students frequent, based on, whatever background they may have. And even for our first gen students, our underrepresented students from rural areas, right? There's some programs specifically for them, and you just try to make friends with the folks or the staff in the area so that they allow those students to have an opportunity to meet you and build a relationship with you.
Yeah, going to where the students are, I think is really important, because usually saying, oh, you build it, they'll come. It's really not the case. Even if you're 100% financing it, right? It's a very attractive offer in your mind, but as Carlton was saying, it's just, there is a population, they just self-select themselves out. So yeah, I've done football games. I have gone through the OVC, so it's a Women in Electrical and Computer Engineering organizations. All the Black students engineers. I go to all of their meetings, like the very first day when they have it. I ask them for a little bit of a time and talk to them about the program. If it's possible, I also bring a student with me who's been there. And also I have a video of the students with their testimonials. So if their students are no longer there, I have something, a recording of their testimonials. Because again, they want to see it from a student's perspective as well.
Yeah, we have a significant challenge in that area. That's a nut I'm currently trying to crack. Our idea for increasing minoritized student participation was to target these areas. Unfortunately, when you talk about agriculture and nursing, it's overwhelmingly white. And so it didn't have the immediate impact that we had hoped. Those areas are making outreach themselves. And so once they get their diversified population, we hope that will trickle into study abroad diversification as well. But otherwise, like Gloria said, I mean, Black Student Union is a group we have on campus that I have tried to go for that. I've gone to the first gen meetings that they've had to try to get them directly. But I'm just a random dude walking into these things. And so again, it's best thing I can do is work with the faculty, get the students motivated.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting point that you brought up in terms of the demographics of the groups that you serve. So I think we all know that in study abroad, women are not a minoritized population, right? But in STEM, they are. And so it's been this interesting interplay, right? Because this is through the Women and Minority Engineering program, our program is. And so we have only had 2 male students that have participated in between the 2 cohorts, right? So one of the goals is actually to recruit more, non-minority students, right, to this opportunity as well, right? And so trying to figure out how we can get more white male students involved in this study abroad program to a very different space is actually one of the goals that we have for this upcoming year, because our group has been overwhelmingly women and mostly white women, right? So how do we get more students of color? How do we get more male students and involved in this program are goals that we have for this upcoming year.
All wonderful insights, and I think tying some of the pieces together, right? Gloria mentioned, leveraging videos of students or quotes from students' experiences and things, right? And maybe something to bring back to Zach and your community while you have them, right? Leverage those quotes and those videos and things, and then use that to market in a future iteration. And so shifting gears a bit to maybe a little bit more about the partnerships that you all have developed. Can you all maybe go into a little bit more depth to tell us about your local and international partners? I know, Zach, we mentioned local manufacturers and as well as the EDU Africa, but maybe who are you all partnering with in your programs, and maybe specify that a little bit more.
I can go ahead and go. So on, we have 2 partners. We have a logistics partner, and I call them a partner because although they provide logistics to us, they also help us with helping our students understand the cultural context which they're about to drop into. So Fine Safaris Africa is the group that we use in Rwanda. And some of that is just, the language that you use. How do you talk about the genocide, right? So providing us some cultural content. The other partner we have is Mothering Across Continents. They're a 501c3 located in Charlotte, North Carolina. They provide us access to the K through 12 schools that we work with. So those are the 2 kind of commercial or nonprofit partners we have. And then we just this past summer we were able to sign memorandums of understanding with the University of Rwanda to cover their college of education, college engineering, and college of science and technology. And we had a meeting with them last week to talk about how we're going to use some of our ideas funds to bring them over here to talk to our faculty and start maybe some joint research projects that our students can work on together. Because to this point, the research our students have been doing has been with our faculty in Rwanda. We want more joint projects. So we think that will create more synergies across the two countries and 2 institutions. And then we also have a second partner, the Institute for Applied Sciences, which is another university in Rwanda. And they're located in Musanze, which is in the north west corner. It's closer to the Democratic Republic of Congo. They have a limited number of engineering programs. They're really our partner in terms of working in the community and building rapport with the schools that we get from the 501c3, the Mothering Across Continents. So we have, kind of this combination of K through 12 stuff that we're doing, and then on the college side, the University of Rwanda is one of our main partners. So those are the folks that we're working with in country. We've also had some really good conversations. This past summer, I was able to visit Carnegie Mellon, has a facility in Rwanda, really nice facility, relatively new. I was able to visit them. They are not focused on engineering education, so there's no competition there. And so we were talking about how we can figure out some ways to work together. They're really focused on computer science as a discipline in entrepreneurship, in the Internet of Things. And so trying to figure out how we can collaborate with them. So that's another opportunity that we're going to try to capitalize on with our second year of funding coming up.
I would say the professional organizations who, some of them are ethnically, specific. So for me, the biggest ally for me has been the Korean American Society for Engineers and Scientists. I started my involvement when I was a grad student, and then I rose through the ranks and became the vice president, which gave me access to all the presidents pretty much of the leading universities. So it made the conversation a little easier. It's like, hey, we have this program, and if you have that much access, all of a sudden you have a better way to match the demographic of your students with the college that you're targeting for. I'm an alumni of Seoul National University, but that turned out not to be the best match. So being involved in some of the professional societies where people from that country flock into, then you can make those connections and that network becomes yours eventually.
Yeah, I used to, growing up, I hated the idea of networking. Like it was such a pain and made me anxious and terrified. But now, I'm this old guy and oh my gosh, it's networking. Like the consortium is how we run study abroad. We could not self-sustain any of our programs. And so we are part of the Illinois Consortium for International Studies and Programs. And there's 32 schools in Illinois that combine resources to make these programs run. That's the only way we could. I know Kentucky has it, Madison, Indiana, Missouri, California. So most states have community colleges created these consortiums to leverage all of those resources and support. And so that's what we did. We used those existing relationships, and it was Oakton Community College in Chicago. They started with EDU Africa. They liked it. They gave them to us. We've expanded our use with them. We're giving them to some of our other colleagues. And so it's this network that just slowly grows and builds. We wouldn't be able to do any of this ourselves. And so, I hate that networking thing, but you get passionate people together and it's not a pain anymore. It's people who are passionate, who are working together for a common end. And that's been great.
Wonderful. And so I think we're looking at time here. And so we have room for maybe one more question. And we want to make sure that we're also addressing a common theme that our registrants and in our chat earlier with our waterfall activity have on top of mind, which is curricular development. And I know many of you talked about the integration within the curriculum for the programs that you have developed. And so we're hoping to maybe get some insight into a potential tricky situation, right? Have any of you gone through a curricular integration that has been particularly challenging or difficult? And how did you navigate that on your campus?
I think for me, the one was thinking outside the box. As I mentioned in my brief presentation earlier, if I wanted to partner with Korea, that semester mismatch was a big issue. And then when I went through ideas and through their webinars and different information sessions, I learned, oh, you could do virtual exchange program that will enhance their curriculum. And if they don't get to go for a very longer period of time, like 6 to 8 weeks, then you can leverage actually the time where that school in session versus we're not in session. And winter in Korea is really cold. So I think, and they're going to welcome the opportunity to come to sunny Gainesville in February, where it's the worst. So I think some of that you can actually employ, like talk to your colleagues, go to conferences to see what they have done in terms of, even virtual programs. I was not a proponent of virtual programs before, but through ideas that completely changed my thinking, especially when I ran into the hurdles of having COVID, just, starting right after I got the grant.
I think for me, we did run into, so initially our colleagues, and I say our colleagues in the College of Engineering were supportive as we started trying to grow and develop this program. Some of them had some concerns about ABET. Those of you working in engineering, that's the Accreditation Board for Engineering Technology, and whether or not some of these courses would count toward ABET requirements. And so we did a couple of different things. On the graduate side, we created a graduate certificate so that students would be able to take these courses and still use their funding toward them. And then on the undergraduate side, we created an academic minor for the same reason. Students will be able to use their funding, their financial aid towards these courses. And then the other thing that we did too was we figured out, okay, especially for our undergraduate students, how can we integrate this into their curriculum a little bit easier? And so it takes 15 credit hours to get an academic minor at NC State. And we have 2 courses available that are that we've gotten certified to be part of our general education program. One for interdisciplinary studies, the other for global knowledge. Those are categories in our general education program. And so if you take those 2 courses, you're really only taking 3 extra courses in order to get the academic minor, right? And so that's another way that we've tried to work it so that our students have access to the program in a meaningful way, but not kind of upsetting the apple cart in terms of collaboration with colleagues who may feel like this is something that's not necessarily something that they want to support from a curriculum standpoint directly in their discipline.
I think with the CTE areas, its curriculum is really hard. So when you talk about nursing, the 2-year nursing degree is insane. It's a set schedule they have. They have the offsite going to the hospital stuff. Like, we can't ask them to take another class on top of this. And so we had to figure out how best could we make the opportunity available to those students who have this really strict requirements while they're here. And so that was a lot of discussion before we settled on the service learning model that we're doing right now. And the virtual service learning was our first foray into that. And that's the CAPTE standards were amazing to help with that. But then trying to get them to have the option to go out of country as well. And so the timing of when they would leave, when they'd come back, would they miss too many clinical hours? That was quite logistically crazy, as Canton was kind of talking about. The logistics are nuts. But we were able to do something like Gloria said. So they are going to South Africa in January for us, which is horrible, but it's okay for them. And so I think it's always trying to see the opportunity that's available. Rather than just saying, oh yeah, the school calendars don't align and it's going to interfere with courses. And so there's some of those mini mesters or spring break weeks, things like that. It's always a challenge, but it's kind of fun if you like problem solving.
Well, I want to say thank you so much to the 3 of you for your wonderful insights into your programs and into these questions that have really hit a large range of concerns and inquiries that our audience has had coming into this webinar today. And so we want to share a couple of takeaways for everyone to ruminate on as they go back to their home institutions. And so one is, really we're thinking big for all of these programs, but in order to think big, we also have to really consider starting small. So whether that be, Zach, a ad hoc committee that then develops into something much more advanced. We think about starting local and about starting with a lot of motivation. Our next tip is to really do some outreach, right, to our students, find them where they are, right, elevate the voices of former students who have experienced things and can really speak to the benefits of the programs and the support that they have. Go where the students are, go to their spaces where they are going to be frequenting. Think about the information to the students and provide the information to the students as early as possible, and give students agency in designing parts of their experience as they head abroad. And then last but not least, make it a win-win for your institution and for your partners. And that is how we are anticipating you'll have a successful development of a program. And so with that, I'd like to turn it back over to Rachel.
Thank you to all of our grantee presenters as well. This content was so fantastic, and this is a really busy time of year for all of you. You're all faculty, and I don't know here on the call. So final up, we hope that you'll continue to connect with us virtually, but also this fall. A couple of days. My hopes that allows you to hear me better. We've got another webinar coming up in 2 weeks with our colleagues on the SHARE program here at World Learning for supporting higher education and refugee resettlement. I hope you'll join us for that. And then I hope you'll stay in touch with us on our website, via email, and via our LinkedIn page. And if you like and follow LinkedIn page, you will be for upcoming and events. We'll drop some of those that you're able to upcoming opportunities, and we'll hang out for a few more minutes if I have additional questions. We're serving out of Zoom to fill that out. It is really